time for us to take a journey back to the future.
Back to the future. Gotta make a movie reference. Alright. Episode 2. Wow, we're already there.
In the unlikeliest of places. 19th century St. Petersburg. At the
Okay.
entrance to St. Isaac's Cathedral.
At the start of
Cold,
history,
early
as
morning
we
mist
know,
dissipated with the approach of the sun,
because there's
and
only
our boots
200
caked
years
in
of history
The year
anywhere.
is 1860, and while St. Petersburg stands regal and proud, its inhabitants are nowhere to be found. It is quiet, too quiet.
Because humanity hadn't been created from the
population
mud
of
yet
St.
by
Petersburg
God.
in the 1860s was, we are told, roughly 500,000 people,
Okay.
and yet there is not a soul in sight. Where is everybody?
Did I just predict that? No. No. No.
The long shadow of Alexander Column gives us a clue as to the time of the sun's journey above
Bro.
this region. Long shadows only occur during morning or evening. It must be morning, but it appears that no one has surfaced yet. If we travel 400 miles across to Moscow,
I mean-
we see the same thing. Empty, quiet streets. In 1860, Moscow shared a similar population with St. Petersburg, roughly 500,000 citizens. But again, where is everybody?
Right there. There's someone right there.
But again, where is everybody?
There's literally a person right here. Wait, can you see it? Okay, here, I'll show you. There is a person right here. Right fucking there. There is at least one person. Where are all the people? They don't exist. They're not real. Conveniently ignores one of the people in the fucking picture.
What about the rest of the world during this
Is
time
this a
period?
drawing? This is a drawing.
Edinburgh, Scotland, 1840s.
Okay, these are pictures. That was a person! You're killing me, dude.
Copenhagen, Denmark, 1840s.
1840s, huh? Okay.
Dresden, Germany, 1860s.
So because there's no people in these
Rio,
photos
Brazil,
except for the people that you
1860s.
ignored in these photos, then
Toronto,
history
Canada,
isn't
1860s.
real? I don't actually know what he's getting at, but it's very confusing.
Athens in Greece, 1860s.
Do these look like miniature scaled down models of the cities to anybody else? Like, this kind of just looks like somebody made a miniature, like a diorama, you know? And like it's like 1/1000th scale, and this is like some sweet old man's hobby. Like he builds 1/1000th model like scale of like old ass historical townships, and then he photographs them with like historically accurate film equipment. Oh, that's so sweet. That's wholesome. And that's why there's no people in them, because they're from some old guy's basement. Okay, like I'm literally looking for people.
Finally,
There's people.
people.
Only London had people. Roll to jaunt my cap.
And what about Paris? People, life.
So only London and Paris had people. Alright.
The first
Understandable.
photograph, we are told, was created in 1822. The art of photography relies on methods of juxtaposition, of comparison and contrast to deliver its message and sentiment. In these old photographs, we do not find the same deliberate techniques of juxtaposition that contemporary photographers craft into their art, but
Yeah, because it had just been created.
rather we find natural contrasts that are so important and central to navigating through our deceptive history. Contrast is a phenomenon, natural or artificial, in which meaning is generated and conveyed through the comparison of two opposing elements.
Okay.
When looking at 1860s Russia, there is an immediate contrast between the lack of population and the sheer size of these cities.
Okay. To be fair, this one couldn't be a diorama. There's a person right there. Right here. There's one person. Possibly more over there. We're not there yet. We're not looking at the curvature
Even in the 19th
yet.
century, both Moscow and St. Petersburg are enormous.
Is this not like a car or a horse or something?
the infrastructure found in the photographs.
Is this smudge not a person walking down this bridge? Like, what?
Could hold a population well into the millions. Why are the cities so vast if the population was only 500,000 in each? Furthermore, the official narrative gives us a population that increases in a linear fashion from 1764. Many of the buildings we see here were built
Fully smashed on the original print at Kinko's.
Did the Russians just plan
But
well in advance?
who put the print in the camera if there
That
was no
is
one living
contrast
here
emerges.
yet?
That is staggering.
If
That
there
is,
were no
between the people
humans.
and the environment itself.
Look at all the
It may
people.
be the reduced population numbers, or it may be the monochromatic starkness of the black and white images, but they present to us something that we've lived amongst our entire lives and never paid any mind to. That is,
Guys, he's literally trying to sell us on the idea that the world was just fully created like 210 years ago, and then like there were just like buildings and society and shit, and then people were just fucking dropped in there.
the enormity and impossibility of the architecture. As we engage with the industry, and
Because it was.
we journey from place to place and observe, taking it all in, learning, hearing, and being told what we are looking at and how it came to be. And standing in front of a structure like the
prove
Arc de Triomphe
history
in Paris,
didn't begin
might
5
even
minutes
explain,
ago. You
wow,
can't.
How did they do this? But the moment, inextricably wrapped up in the busyness of the scene, perhaps prevents us from really asking that question with sincerity. Standing in front of a structure like the Arc de Triomphe, while the crowd
Yeah,
frantically
God
takes
made
pictures
them.
on their smartphones
God made the
makes it all
cities.
a reality.
That's why they
And
used
we
to be
conclude
good, and now they're
we're being
full
shoved
of
away by new tourists.
ground
They had to have
people.
done it somehow because I'm here and looking at it.
That's basically
During our
where this theory is
indoctrination
gonna go. I
we are
fucking
seldom
know it.
shown old photographs of the grand cities scattered around our flat realm, and perhaps for good reason. Because when we marinate on
During
images
school, they didn't really teach us that the Earth was flat, as I would prefer the children to be brought up knowing.
like this, and are presented with the visual evidence of a very primitive Victorian people dotted around like grasshoppers within the shadows of the most magnificent, grandiose, brilliant architecture a human could ever imagine, we begin to have doubts.
So you're
Indeed,
saying
how
God
did they
made
do
it all.
this?
And that's
the Arc de
it.
Triomphe is made from 36,000.
This is completely true. Yeah, it's just like SimCity.
And weighs 95,407 tons, or
The
just over
primitive
95 million
Brits
kilograms.
We're
They tell
pulled
us it took
whole
12 years to
form
build
out
the
of the
giant
ground
arch in
by
two different periods,
Jesus.
between 1806 to 1814, and between 1832 to 1836. How did they transport this amount of limestone with the same horse and carts that we see in the photographs?
Bit by bit, those blocks are not very large.
Look
What do you...
closer at the 4 sculptures that adorn each of its sides. Look at the intricacy of the sculptures. And the
Humans
patterning,
couldn't
the
sculpt
ornamentation
dicks
that
on
frames the
stream.
arch. Each section is
So is the Earth
without
flat,
any
hollow,
deviation or
expanding, or all of the above? At this
The
point, I
first
think
true
it has
hour
to be
was
all
not
of the
invented
above.
until 60 years after this arch was completed. They tell us this was crafted by hand. Is that even possible? And then
Yes.
there is the ceiling of the arch. Immaculate, 3D sculpted roses. Perfect in their geometric symmetry.
Is that what
The
those
nuance
are?
of the detail and finesse of each petal and cross-section borders is overwhelming. Look at the rest of Paris during this time. Again, a plethora of unbelievable, gigantic, and magnificent structures.
Yeah, we
The city's
used to build
infrastructure
big
glorious,
things.
and the people and their means of transport primitive,
And that's
unsophisticated, and
because we weren't driven by profit at that point. We weren't building, you know, the cheapest gray cement cube that we could get away with, because we weren't profit driven. The Earth is actually, yeah, it's a
seeming
dodecahedron
not
shape.
at all developed to the point of producing their city like this. The roads are improperly paved and uneven. They are dirty.
They don't have cars yet. It's easier for horses to walk on fucking ground like that. The packed dirt is easier on their fucking hooves. I'm going to kill you.
and muddy. We also see buildings during this period in which the architecture aligns with the inhabitants.
Yes, because those are where the poor people buildings live.
Buildings of misshapen proportions, less developed and refined, charming in their own way, but coarse in their use of wood and plaster. This is exactly the type of architecture we expect of a generation of horse and cart, a generation ignorant to the discoveries in technology that would follow in the years to come. Furthermore,
If a building is big, God, this is like saying that because trailer parks exist, we can't have museums.
at the time of this photograph, the arch is roughly 40 years old since its completion. Yet can you see how worn some of the parts of the structure are? We see weathering on the stone that suggests the arch is much older.
Bro,
As we-
it was... You're talking about a photo taken in sepia.
we approach the late 19th century,
gonna murder
we see
someone.
that the people of Moscow have finally decided to leave their homes and venture out into the streets. The infamous Red Square, now bustling with life. St. Basil's Cathedral and the Spasskaya Tower dominate the frame of the square.
I hate that all of you have automatically decided that you're just going to be agreeing with everything that the video says, while I am left screeching into the fucking void.
And was completed in 1561, a mere 6 years. It suffered a huge fire in
I agree. Let's tear down all the museums. I think that's the pro gamer move for society.
Almost unreal and like no other. It is composed of thousands of red bricks and tin sheet metal that has been shaped into the distinctive onion domes we see. Look closer at the intricacy of the domes. How did they bend metal to achieve such precision and perfection in the 18th century?
I don't think they were communists yet. They were still
why are the conditions of
monarchs.
the so poor and covered in mud? We see these incredible structures and buildings everywhere in 19th century photography.
So you think God said, okay, I'm gonna make them all these cool buildings to live in, like Sim City, but I'm not gonna make roads.
Glorious Crystal Palace of London, a monstrous structure with the
Oh look, we
greatest
talked
area of
about
glass
this.
ever seen in a building, and all constructed before England had automatic glass manufacturing. We have Westminster Abbey and Parliament.
Every
we
time.
have the old Euston Arch,
Every
constructed out of
fucking
pure
time.
sandstone in 1837, and streets unpaved and full of mud. Why did these people not prioritize the streets they walked upon? The Frauenkirche, the domed masterpiece of Dresden, Germany, its intricate and opulent splendor in direct contrast with the beat-up wagons and horse-pulled carts of the people below, a people dependent on the bare necessities.
What does
A
this
people
have to do
completely
with
dwarfed
the
by its
flat
size
Earth?
and majesty. The Library of
The
Parliament in
Hall of
Ottawa,
Justice.
Canada, built over a period of 17 years.
Justice
The
friends,
first
assemble!
major settlers arrived in 1800, and at the time of construction, the city's population was under 20,000.
Wonder Twin
Would a
powers
grand,
activate!
glorious library really be a priority for settlers?
Shape
Why does a
of
building
the
look
flat
like it's been
Earth.
dropped out of Europe and pasted into Canada?
Form of a
Even at the
bucket
turn
of
the
water.
century, 40 years before Bosch economized the power tool, we have the old Penn Station in New York. Look at the size of this. Completely mind-blowing
And look at the people in it.
proportions. As we can see here in the photograph, each octagonal, sculpted pattern on the arched dome ceiling
Oh my
is
God.
larger than one individual human.
People had nice buildings, therefore
Look at the
flat
gigantic
Earth.
columns and detailed Santa sleeves decorating
Please.
the tops of each pillar.
Please.
They tell us this station took 6
I know
years.
I say this every
6
stream,
whole
but I
years.
need to be
They're right. Why are we
lobotomized.
so gullible? Even without
Form
access to
of
modern
the
housing,
ice wall.
principal construction pieces, and crane technology, we cannot reproduce this today. And more importantly, we can't reproduce this type of architecture today.
We could! We could make this today! Yes, we could! Yes, we fucking could! Why are you saying that? God must have taken the
We can't
photos.
reproduce this type of architecture today.
Damn it.
The official liars of our world have an umbrella term for
Oh,
this
I'm
type
gonna
of architecture
fucking
that we see in North America.
cry.
They call it historism. Historism is a term coined to describe a style of architecture that
God is,
derived from
I mean,
each,
of course he
or,
would be the
in
best
other words,
photographer.
copies the style of another period in time. The grand arches and buildings with giant columns we see are built in the classical or Greco-Roman style, and the cathedrals
Yes.
are built in the Renaissance and Gothic styles of medieval Europe. Components
Yes.
of these particular styles of architecture feature large spires, arched windows, towers, turrets, domes, arcaded arches, sculptures, enormous doors, circular geometric windows,
Okay.
columns, clock faces, and bell towers.
Are you saying God made Big Ben? Are you saying God made Big Ben?
Traces of this impossible architecture are literally found everywhere, in every city, and across our world today. Some preserved and maintained, like the Parisian Arc de Triomphe and Notre Dame, and others lost and long forgotten to time, like the Euston Arch and the old Penn Station in New York. We as a people travel miles to take our own photographs of these wonders. But the photographers of the 19th century gift us with something. Something they would never have expected to give a future generation. Perspective.
Proof
We
that
see a
the
primitive
Earth
people
is
against
flat?
a backdrop of clearly advanced architectural infrastructure.
Why are they primitive? Why are they primitive people? Because they didn't have cars yet?
The official historians of the world tell us tales of Darwinian evolution and progression between time periods. The people that came after were always more advanced in their ways, refining and redefining the methods of the generation that came before. If the height of innovation and industry during the 19th century was still the horse and car as a means of travel, then, as these photographs tell us, this style of architecture was just as impossible for those living in the centuries before it. Anyone with a predisposition for thinking and questioning can immediately sense when looking at these photographs.
It's because they don't have iPhones. So true. You're not
historical
advanced
narrative,
until
that
you have an
something is not
iPhone.
adding up. In a panoramic image of San Francisco in 1877, we see a collage of historicist architecture. We see columns adorning the entrances to very regal buildings.
I'm sorry.
Like sore thumbs from some...
But are you saying that, like, I'm like 99% certain that we have, like, first fucking, what is it called? Primary historical sources that detail the construction of these buildings. We just don't have pictures.
Some of the timber shacks surrounding it. We see Gothic
Therefore,
spires and towers in the
swap.
distance.
So
we
true.
see domed cathedrals
So true.
and buildings. We also see just how sprawling and huge the city has become.
I love this movie.
In
This is the
1846,
best.
there were under 500 Mormon settlers living on the area of land in which we now call San Francisco.
Yeah.
It was frontier land and ready for the
So then are you saying that
Between
God, like,
1848
dropped San
and
Francisco
1849,
on
with the start
top
the
of
California
the
gold rush,
settlers?
population increased from 1,000 people to 25,000 people.
And then when God saw that there were 25,000 people in that area, he said, oh shit, I forgot that spot. And he just dropped San Francisco on them.